My name is Alyssa and I'm 34. The study smelled of aged leather and the kind of expensive scotch you save for victories. Ice chimed against crystal. A dust mote floated through the single shaft of golden light, hitting the mahogany desk. I could feel the cool condensation on my glass, grounding me in the moment. The air felt heavy with legacy, the way a room feels right before a coronation. I thought the war was finally over. And then my father smiled. He slid the paper across the desk. But the document under my hand wasn't a deed. It was a bill. "We have transferred the ranch title to Nathan and Samantha," he said, his voice smooth as oil, "to secure their future. But we need you to sign this maintenance contract. $4,500 a month. Indefinitely." He looked up, his smile widening. "Because you, Alyssa, are the capable one. Before I tell you what I did next, I have to ask, have you ever been the responsible one who everyone relies on until the money runs out? Drop a yes in the comments if you know exactly how heavy that burden feels. I'm reading every single one." I walked out of that study without signing a thing. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the heavy oak desk. I just walked to my car, got in, and drove 3 hours back to my condo in Dallas in complete silence. The highway stretched out before me, a gray ribbon cutting through the Texas heat, but my mind was replaying the last 10 years on a loop. People ask me now why I stayed, why I paid. They look at the numbers, and they call me gullible. $920,000. That is how much I poured into that ranch over a decade. I paid for the new barn roof when the insurance wouldn't cover it. I paid the $85,000 settlement when my brother Nathan tried to launch a crypto mining operation in the guest house and burned out the electrical grid. I paid for the renovations my sister Samantha demanded because she wanted the place to look like a wedding venue for Instagram.
Why?
It wasn't because I was weak, and it wasn't because I was stupid. I was a successful marketing executive. I managed million-dollar budgets for Fortune 500 companies. I knew how to spot a bad deal. But this wasn't business. This was addiction. There is a concept in psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It is the same trick casinos use to keep you glued to a slot machine. If you lose every time, you walk away. If you win every time, you get bored. But if you lose and lose and lose, and then just once the machine lights up and gives you a tiny payout, you're hooked. You think the pattern is changing. You think your luck has turned. That was my father. For months, he would ignore me or make passive-aggressive comments about my career choice, calling my marketing firm a cute little hobby. But then, the moment I wrote a check, the moment I saved them from their own incompetence, he would look at me with those steel blue eyes and say, "Alyssa, you are the only one we can count on. You are the rock of this family." That was my jackpot. That one sentence was the coins clattering into the tray. It validated every sacrifice. It made me feel like I wasn't just the daughter who moved away to the city. I was the savior. I told myself I was investing in my legacy. I thought I was buying respect. But as the miles rolled by and the Dallas skyline rose up on the horizon, glittering and sharp, the realization hit me so hard I almost pulled over. I wasn't the savior. I was the mark.
They didn't respect me. They didn't even like me.
They just liked that I was solvent. My father's words in the study echoed in the car. "You are the capable one." That wasn't a compliment. It was a justification for exploitation. He was punishing me for my competence and rewarding Nathan and Samantha for their failures. They got the land because they couldn't survive without it. I got the bill because I could afford it. I pulled into my parking garage and turned off the engine. The silence in my car was deafening. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They were steady. I expected to feel heartbreak. I expected to feel the crushing weight of grief. But I didn't. I felt something else entirely. It was cold. It was heavy. And it felt a lot like clarity.
I wasn't going to sign that contract.
I wasn't going to pay another dime. The slot machine had finally broken, and for the first time in 10 years, I was walking out of the casino. The moment I walked into my condo, I didn't collapse on the sofa. I didn't call my best friend to cry about how cruel my father had been. I walked straight to my home office, sat down in my ergonomic chair, and woke up my laptop. The blue light of the screen washed over my face, cool and clinical. It was time to audit the books. For years, I had treated my family's expenses like a subscription service I couldn't figure out how to unsubscribe from. It was automatic, frictionless. The property taxes were set to auto-draft from my high-yield savings account. The ranch's utility bills, which averaged $800 a month in the summer because Samantha refused to turn off the air conditioning in the guest house, were linked to my primary checking. And then there was the maintenance fund, a direct wire transfer of $4,500 scheduled for the first of every month. I logged into the county tax portal first. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I saw the pending payment scheduled for next week. I moved the cursor to the Manage Auto Pay button.
Click. Delete. Confirm.
Next, the electric co-op. I removed my banking information and replaced it with the mailing address for the ranch. If they wanted the lights on, they could write a check.
Click.
Remove.
Save.
Then, the bank transfer. This was the big one. This was the money that kept the illusion alive. I looked at the history. Month after month of transfers. A river of my labor flowing into a desert that never bloomed. I clicked Cancel Recurring Transaction. The bank security system popped up a warning. Are you sure? This cannot be undone. I stared at the prompt. For a second, a phantom wave of guilt washed over me. I heard my mother's voice, the way she would sound when she realized the money wasn't there, panicked, fragile, weaponizing her helplessness. I heard my father's disappointment. But then I remembered the contract. I remembered the smirk on Nathan's face when he realized he owned the land I was paying for. I hit yes. The screen flashed. Transaction canceled. It was done. I sat back, expecting the roof to cave in. I expected the world to stop. But the only thing that happened was the hum of my refrigerator kicking on. The silence in the room wasn't empty. It was full of oxygen. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in a decade, my chest didn't hurt. The peace lasted exactly 48 minutes. My phone, which I had placed face down on the desk, began to vibrate. It was my mother. I didn't answer. I watched the screen light up, go dark, and light up again. Then the text started. Susan, Alyssa, the electric company just sent a notification about a payment method update. What did you do? Susan, answer me. Your father is getting upset. Susan, how could you be so petty? We are your family. Then, Nathan. His messages were less pleading and more venomous. Nathan, you think you're smart? Cutting us off. You're a traitor. Nathan, Dad is going to have a heart attack because of you. Hope you can live with that, you greedy bitch. I read the words, greedy bitch, and I almost laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. I was the one who had just saved myself $4,500 a month, and yet in their narrative, I was the thief. I looked at my bank balance. It was stable. It wasn't bleeding out anymore. I felt a twinge of the old conditioning, the urge to fix it, to soothe them, to pay the peace tax. But I looked at the canceled transaction receipt on my screen. It was my shield. I didn't reply. I closed the laptop, poured a glass of water, and turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. The bleeding had stopped. I thought the silence would force them to reflect. I thought that maybe, without the cushion of my money, they would have to face the hard concrete of reality. I was naive. When you cut off a parasite, it doesn't apologize. It attacks. It happened on a Tuesday, 3 days after the cutoff. I walked into my marketing firm in downtown Dallas, coffee in hand, ready for a strategy meeting. My office manager, Sarah, was standing at my desk, her face pale. Alyssa, she said, her voice shaking. We have a problem. The server is down, and you need to see the website. I dropped my bag and pulled up our homepage on my phone. My stomach turned to ice. My sleek, professional landing page was gone. In its place was a crude, black background with red text. The CEO of this company steals from her own family. Greedy liar. Who has admin access besides me? I asked, my voice deadly calm, though my pulse was hammering in my throat. Just the IT contractors, Sarah said. And your brother. From back when he set up the firewall 2 years ago. Nathan. I didn't scream. I walked into the server room. The backup drives had been wiped. Client files, contracts, design assets, months of work were gone. It wasn't just a prank. It was an attempt to destroy my livelihood. It was an attempt to kill the golden goose, because it had stopped laying eggs. This wasn't just anger. This was something else. This was what psychologists call a narcissistic injury. When I stopped paying the bills, I didn't just inconvenience them. I shattered the delusion they lived in. My family built their entire identity on being landed gentry, on being the owners of a sprawling, successful ranch. But that identity was a costume paid for by me. Without my money, the lights go out, the grass dies, the facade crumbles. When I pulled the plug, I unmasked them. I forced them to look in the mirror and see that they weren't wealthy ranchers. They were broke, incompetent dependents. And that terror, the terror of being seen as they truly are, converted instantly into rage. This wasn't about the money anymore. They wanted to punish me for exposing them. They wanted to burn my reality down so they didn't have to face their own. Get the forensic team on the line, I told Sarah. And call our lawyer. Do you want me to call your brother? She asked. No, I said, staring at the defaced website. He wants a reaction. He wants me to call crying and begging him to fix it so he can feel powerful again. I'm not going to give him that. I sat down at my desk. The gambler's fallacy was dead. I wasn't waiting for the slot machine to pay out anymore. I was calling security to have the machine dismantled. And Sarah? I added. Document everything. Every login. Every deleted file. Take screenshots. He thinks this is a family squabble. He's about to find out it's a felony. I watched the red text on my screen. Greedy liar. It was a projection. They were looking at themselves and screaming my name. But I wasn't listening to the screams anymore. I was looking at the evidence. And I was preparing for war. I didn't respond to the hacking with a text message. I didn't drive down to the ranch to scream at my brother. Anger is a waste of energy when you are dealing with criminals. Instead, I picked up the phone and called a forensic accountant. His name was David, and he cost $350 an hour. He was worth every cent. I gave him access to everything. My bank statements going back 10 years, the transfer receipts, the emails where my father detailed the specific repairs needed for the ranch. Then, my lawyer subpoenaed the ranch's financial records as part of the discovery for a lawsuit regarding the cyber attack on my business. Because Nathan had used my admin credentials to hack my server, he had opened a legal door he couldn't close. We weren't just looking at the hack. We were looking at the motive. It took David 3 days to find the smoking gun. I was in my temporary office space when he called me. Alyssa, he said, his voice dry and professional. I'm looking at the flow of funds for the maintenance account. The one you wired $4,500 to every month. Yes, I said. For the feed, the taxes, and the fence repairs. No, David said. That account never paid a single property tax bill. The ranch's operational costs were covered entirely by the cattle leases and the oil royalties your father receives. Your money didn't go to the ranch. My hand tightened on the phone. Where did it go? It was set up as a pass-through entity, David explained. Within 24 hours of your deposit each month, the funds were transferred to a brokerage account under the name NH Strategic Holdings. That account is registered to Nathan Henderson. The room seemed to tilt. I sat down heavily. For a decade, my father hadn't been asking me to help keep the family land afloat. He had been laundering my money to fund my brother's delusions of being a tech investor. Every time I sacrificed a vacation, every time I drove an old car so I could afford the family contribution, I was actually funding Nathan's crypto portfolio and his failed startups. I looked at the spreadsheet David sent over. It was nauseating. March 2018. Repairs for the barn roof. That check went to buy Bitcoin. July 2020. Emergency veterinary bills. That money went into a tech stock that crashed 3 months later. They weren't poor. They were thieves. My father, the patriarch who preached about duty and sacrifice, had stolen nearly $200,000 from the daughter who worked for it, just to give it to the son who wasted it. What is the total balance in Nathan's holding account right now?
I asked.
Paradoxically, David said, Nathan has actually made some lucky trades recently. The account holds roughly $215,000. It is liquid. I closed my eyes. They had the money. They had the money to fix my server. They had the money to pay me back. But they would never give it up willingly. They felt entitled to it. In their minds, my money was family property, and since Nathan was the heir, it was his by right. Draft the report, I told David. And tell my lawyer to prepare a settlement agreement. I'm going to pay them a visit. I wasn't going there to beg. I was going there to collect. I drove to the ranch on a Friday afternoon. The Texas sky was wide and blue, indifferent to the storm I was bringing with me. I parked in the gravel driveway, right next to Nathan's truck, a truck I now realized I had probably paid for. They were waiting for me in the living room.
It was a scene straight out of an intervention.
My mother, Susan, was sitting on the floral sofa with a handkerchief in her hand, looking tragic. Nathan was leaning against the mantel, arms crossed, trying to look intimidating but mostly looking like a petulant child. Samantha was scrolling on her phone in the corner, bored. And my father, James, sat in his leather armchair, the king of his crumbling castle. They thought I was there to surrender. They thought the server crash had broken me, that I had come to apologize for cutting them off, and to beg for the hacking to stop. "We are disappointed in you, Alyssa," my father began, his voice deep and rumbling. He didn't even stand up. "You nearly ruined your brother's future with this tantrum. Cutting off the funds? Threatening us? That isn't how we raised you." "And the website?" Nathan sneered. "Consider that a lesson. You don't turn your back on family." My mother sniffled loudly. "We are willing to forgive you," she said. "If you reinstate the transfers and sign the maintenance contract, we can put this ugliness behind us. We just want peace."
I didn't sit down.
I stood in the center of the room, holding a thick manila envelope. The weight of it felt good in my hand. "There isn't going to be peace," I said. My voice didn't shake. "And I'm not here to sign your contract." I tossed the envelope onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud, sliding toward my father. "That," I said, pointing to the file, "is a forensic accounting of the last 10 years. It shows every transfer I made to the maintenance account. And it shows every transfer James made from that account into Nathan's personal investment portfolio." The silence in the room was absolute. My father's face went gray. Nathan pushed off the mantel, his smugness evaporating instantly. "You audited us?" Nathan shouted. "That's illegal. That's private financial information. It's discovery for a civil suit regarding the destruction of my business property," I countered. "But it's about to become a criminal exhibit." I looked at my father. "This is wire fraud, Dad. Use of telecommunications to conduct a financial theft scheme. And Nathan? Hacking a secured server and destroying data? That is a federal cybercrime. I have the IP logs. I have the bank traces. I have everything." "You wouldn't," my mother whispered, staring at me with horror. "He is your brother. You wouldn't send him to prison." "I would," I said, in a heartbeat. I pulled a single sheet of paper from my bag. "This is a settlement agreement. It states that you will immediately liquidate Nathan's holding account and transfer $200,000 back to me. It also includes a clause for $50,000 in damages for my business. You sign this, you transfer the funds today, and I walk away with my mouth shut. You refuse, and I drive straight to the district attorney's office." "I can't liquidate that account," Nathan screamed. "That's my capital. That's my future. It's my money," I said, "and it's going home." My father stood up, his hands shaking. He looked at the file, then at me. He tried to summon his old authority, the glare that used to make me crumble. "Alyssa, be reasonable. You don't need this money. You're successful. Why would you destroy us over money you don't need?" "Because it's not about the money," I said. "It's about the fact that you stole it. You looked me in the eye for 10 years and lied. You made me feel guilty for not giving enough, while you were siphoning everything I gave to him." I checked my watch. "You have 5 minutes to sign. After that, I call the police." It didn't take 5 minutes. It took 2. Nathan broke first. He started crying, a jagged, ugly sound. Dad, just sign it. I can't go to jail. Please. The patriarch crumbled. James didn't look at me. He took the pen, his hand trembling violently, and signed the transfer order and the settlement. He was no longer the powerful rancher. He was just a thief who got caught. I took the papers. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back at my mother, who was sobbing into her hands. I walked out of that house, into the Texas sun, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely light. 6 months later, the ranch was gone. Without my monthly payments, and with the sudden loss of Nathan's investment cushion, the debts piled up faster than they could manage. They sold the land to a developer from Austin to pay off the remaining mortgages and credit card bills. My parents moved into a rental duplex in the suburbs. Nathan moved in with a girlfriend who didn't know yet that he was broke. Samantha stopped speaking to all of them when she realized there was no inheritance left to wait for. The legacy they tried to hoard had turned to dust in their hands. I stood on the balcony of my condo, watching the sun dip below the Dallas skyline, painting the glass buildings in shades of violet and gold. I checked my phone. The notification from the bank was there. The settlement funds had cleared long ago, but today, a new transaction had gone through. I didn't use the money to buy a car. I didn't use it to upgrade my condo. I realized that if I just spent it, I was still reacting to them. I wanted to build something that was entirely mine, something that transformed the years of exploitation into power. I established the Freedom Grant. It is a scholarship fund specifically designed for women who are financially supporting toxic families. It provides legal aid, financial planning, and emergency funds for women who need to cut the cord but can't afford to. It is the justice of the sower. I took the money that was meant to keep me enslaved, and I planted it to help others break free. Every time I sign a check for a woman who needs to pay a deposit on a new apartment to escape her parents, I feel a profound sense of victory. My trauma didn't break me. It became a ladder for someone else. I closed my laptop and poured a glass of wine. The air in my apartment was still and sweet. I thought about the maintenance contract my father had tried to make me sign. He wanted to bind me to him forever with debt and obligation. Instead, I had severed the tie with truth. The gambler's fallacy was finally broken. I no longer bet on people who were rigged to make me lose. I no longer put coins into a machine that was never going to pay out. I invested in myself. Alyssa found her freedom not by fighting for their love, but by fighting for her respect. If you're holding on to a relationship that only takes, maybe it's time to stop the transaction. Share this story if you believe in breaking the cycle. And tell me in the comments, what is one boundary you are going to set today?